What a wonderful God.
Computer science, software really, a friend writes, is about creation. You start with nothing and you create something that has a certain level of intelligence and is able to perform certain functions according to what has been designed by the Creator. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And He filled creation with all kinds of matter, elemental building blocks that operate on hard-coded programming and principles, physical principles. A vast array of vegetation that seems to take on a different kind of life, a more kind of life than those elemental building blocks, a seed and plant kind of eco-intelligence. And then animals God made in the creation account with an even greater creaturely capacity. And then finally, the ultimate creation of God, human beings, people like you, were made by God. The pinnacle of His design and arguably the greatest expression of His creatorly mind. You are, by being a human being, the embodiment of the intelligence of God. That's who God says you are. With incredible capacities to contemplate and to stand outside of yourself and to think objectively and to imagine and cognitively process and create and co-create with God and sub-create before Him. God made you a little lower than God, the poet writes, and crowned you with glory and honor. So 2 months ago, I was speaking in Sacramento at another church, committing ecclesiastical adultery. And whenever you do that, you pull out an old sermon. So the one that I did here on an electrician in the God and Work series, I re-preached it there. And afterwards was talking to all these people, and this one software guy comes up to me and says, and this was a smart guy, you could tell. He says, yeah, everything you said there about electrician applies to what I do in these ways. And he basically started writing out a sermon on knowing God through software engineering, and never one to avoid as much work as possible. I said, write it all down and send it to me, because I think there's something there that your job in a unique way points to, shows us, that we can look through to see something unique about the person of God. And so he sent me a long note, and here are just a few excerpts from this programmer. He wrote, there is a progression of the level of intelligence required by a program and by the Creator Himself. First, the simplest of software creations has everything hard-coded, meaning that the programs themselves are filled with static and inflexible constants that never vary or change. This takes little intelligence. The next step is called object-oriented design. And in this case, the software is created in a manner that reflects real life. The creator imagines objects like customers and carts, example Amazon, or monsters, World of Warcraft, and he or she models these objects on their real-life counterparts. The ultimate step for a creator would be to create something that is able to grow, change, evolve, develop new skills, new relationships, etc., that were perhaps imagined by the Creator, but were not hard-coded into each object. You create something like a cat, which evolves into a leopard, or a lion, or a tiger, or a panther, or a cheetah, etc. And then later he asks this very good question. How much intelligence would a creator need to have and embody in order to create a world of objects that were able to evolve in ways like this? It would require infinitely more intelligence to create a world in this way than if everything was hard-coded. These ideas came to him as he was trying to process a God who might have used evolution to create the world. And then one last sentence. He says, nobody can do this in computer software today. We are still at that level of creating discrete objects. To be able to create software that could do what God did, that's only the stuff of science fiction today. What strikes me in reading that email from him and the ensuing conversation that we had was that we, as human beings, are the only creatures that we know of that can create things with embedded intelligence, that are intelligent enough to do something like that, like write software code that starts to approach the artificial intelligence level. And then it struck me that, yeah, these programmers who live in these world-creating places are probably on the leading edge of humanity, investing their intelligence into creating intelligence that continues. And then, of course, it strikes me, well, then what do they say about you, God, when they do what they do and love to do? Because in the image of you, God, they were created. And in the image of God, He created software designers. He created them with the desire to more fully image Him, and as they seek to embed more and more and more intelligence into the programs that they write and design, they are reaching for a glory that God wrote into them and coded into them, to be like their Maker, who is a being who embeds intelligence in His creation. They're made to take joy in that process the way God takes joy in embedding intelligence into the world. When He does that, the poet again, the psalmist, may the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in His works. God rejoices in the process of embedding intelligence in you so that you can go out and do what you do, building God's world. He delights in us doing that. Like I quoted once from Dorothy Sayers, an old Christian writer. It's like a screenwriter who writes a script, and then it gets to the stage, and the actors fill the roles within the script, and it comes alive, and they bring their intelligence into the intelligence that's embedded into the screenplay, and something more results. When I said that to the software guy, Chuck Black, he said back to me, yes, that is exactly what it's like to write software and then see it operate, especially in a real-world environment rather than just in a test lab. And there's a progression of joy related to the intelligence of the program. Does God have a progression of joy related to the intelligence of the program as it plays out, between the pretty much hard-coded principles that atoms operate with versus a plant and its beauty and glory versus an animal versus you? He delights in you becoming what you were made to be, to freely flourish in a real-world environment. Kind of like what you feel as a teacher when a student gets an intelligence that's implanted into them, or maybe you feel it as a mentor when you're working with kids who work alongside and you put it into them, and there's a delight that you feel when they grab onto it and it goes and evolves in them. Or like a mom would feel towards her children. Only all of those people are dealing with pre-installed software in the people that they're embedding that intelligence in. Imagine being the one who kind of put the intelligence there and the capacity there and the code there to begin with. To actually write the software out of nothing. I mean, that is out of this world. And it really is out of this world, because even software engineers don't create out of nothing. Only God creates out of nothing. They use stuff that God gave them, logical constants, mathematical formulae, pre-existing languages, Java. And by utilizing all of that, they bring and give us all a better life. You think about how software and hardware and the whole computer age has improved our capacity to have life. So how can that then not be a gift from God so that humanity can flourish and fully be, in terms of their intelligences, becoming what God designed and coded our intelligences to be? Software helps us more fully image the God who made us, to be more human,